You know, so in the old days, or even our recent history, society thinks and looks at narcotics types of violations or crimes as victimless crimes. The minute or the second that we have kids involved in those types of situations with users, dealers, processors, we have victims.
You know, these kids today are growing up in an environment that they're surrounded by drugs, they're surrounded by violence, and that's what they're going to become. If we don't protect these kids today, we're going to need to be protected from them in the future.
In drug warrants, we focus on the guns, we focus on the drugs, we focus on taking the bad guys to jail. There's a greater responsibility there, and that's the long-term welfare of the children. If officers realize that, their jobs would be easier long-term, because in my career, the people that I come into contact with most of the time generally have come from drug-endangered or from drug houses.
Patrol are pretty continuously having to respond to drug-related scenarios. And usually the first thing they're looking at is they're just going down this road. Their focus is drugs, collecting evidence, and documenting the crime that takes place. But what will be useful to them is when we broaden this lens to look at the children that are over there sitting on the couch at the same time. And they're then looking and going, oh no, now what do we do with these kids that are there? It's going to give them a procedure and a protocol and a method to deal with those children that are there at the scene. So it'll make their lives quite a bit easier.
Officers get into the job to protect the public. Children are part of that public. Officers get into the career to make a difference. And in making a difference, you can't make much more of a difference than saving children and stopping the cycle of drugs.
Every day in our communities, children's lives, health, future, and safety are endangered by drugs. Exposing a child to the manufacturing, trafficking, and use of narcotics is criminal conduct. My name is Gina Ruby, and I will be your host for this telecourse. This training is mandated by the California Penal Code, which recognizes the need for law enforcement to work together with child welfare services to provide a better way of dealing with drug-endangered children. The purpose of the mandate is to encourage agencies to establish a local drug-endangered children's program, or DEC program. The first DEC program was started to rescue children found in methamphetamine labs. And as the program has grown, DEC teams have applied child endangerment laws to additional situations like drug sales, drug use, contamination, and even to homes without drugs but with dangerous health hazards. When peace officers and social workers join forces with the goal of keeping children safe, it's truly a win-win situation for these at-risk children. The main topics of the telecourse are Drug-Endangered Children Protocol, the impact on children and the community, the relationship between law enforcement and child welfare services, protective custody of children, parallel investigations and evidence collection, and the DEC mandate and conclusions.
DEC started in Butte County with one of our workers, basically our investigator, that had come from the welfare department, a welfare fraud investigator, Sue Weber Brown. She had gone over to our narcotics task force, and what she started noticing is the usual narc mentality of going into a house, getting the drugs, getting the bad guys, and the children are left behind or given off to someone else. And this was just not right. So she decided to take a little closer look, came to myself, came to the welfare director in charge of our local social workers and said, we've got to do a better job of this. Children are being harmed by being left in this environment. Children are being also given away to neighbors, given away to relatives that are just as bad as the people that have been arrested. So we need to do something better. We started our DEC program, which is a team effort, and quite frankly, we thought we were behind the curve. We thought, boy, this is just catching up with the modern times, and lo and behold, we were the first to do it.
DEC protocol is just an organized community response for helping kids found in drug-endangered situations, with peace officers playing a critical role. In this segment, we will examine why establishing a DEC program is important, protecting children who are exposed to dangerous drugs. We will define child endangerment, define a DEC program. Mandated reporters of child endangerment are peace officers and social workers, and the benefits of a DEC program.
Establishing a drug endangered children program is important because it marries up law enforcement and social services along with probation and parole and other first responders.
The beauty of a DEC protocol is that it allows each agency or entity in the safety systems of a particular county to do their own specific jobs.
So it allows law enforcement the opportunity to conduct their work without having to be burdened, if you will, by the need to handle children. It's something they're not trained to do and something they would rather other agencies do. And this law allows them to work in unison, in close concert with child protective service agencies or child welfare agencies.
It's important that we have the DEC protocol, so this way we can actually work with law enforcement in collaboration as opposed to Child Protective Services going one way and the police department going the other way.
Sometimes we're so focused on the mission of the day. We're so focused with the planning for the raid and getting through the door and getting the dope and grabbing the evidence before they run back and flush it and all the things that go along with narcotics investigations, that oftentimes we're not paying as close attention as we should be to the true victims of these families, which are the kids. We need to include the kids. We need to really strive to ensure that while we're doing everything else that needs to be done, that we don't overlook the kids. We need to change the perspectives and the focus of the officers to make sure they're including them.
Look, just don't say anything, okay? Just be cool. Be cool.
Hi there, sir. How you doing today?
What's the problem, officer?
Well, actually, the reason I pulled you over is because of that crack in your windshield up there, and I noticed you were driving in excess of the posted speed limit. Do you have any identification on you today?
Yeah, officer, I left my ID back at the house.
Okay. You do have a valid driver's license, though, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Was this your vehicle?
No, this is one of my friend's vehicles.
Does your friend know that you have it?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe your friend has some registration in the glove compartment?
Yeah.
Rebecca, we got 11-3.
You know what, sir? If you could just step out of the vehicle for a minute.
Why?
I'll explain to you when you come out of the car.
For what?
Sir, could you please step out of the vehicle?
Shit. Look, I'll be right back, okay?
Face the car, please.
For what?
Sir, face the car.
For what?
Face the car. Reach
ain't
back
do
with your right
anything
hand.
wrong.
Reach back with your right hand.
I ain't doing anything wrong.
I know. Give me your left.
This is some bullshit. I ain't doing anything wrong.
Walk back to the vehicle.
I'll be right back, Jasmine. Look, just call her mom, okay? Call her mom.
Face the car. Spread your feet.
What are you gonna do with her? Look, just let me call her mom.
Not right now.
Pull me over for a cracked windshield?
Pulled you over for a cracked windshield. We placed you under arrest because of the narcotics that we saw in your vehicle.
Look, It's not mine.
Have a seat.
Look, it's not mine.
Is that your daughter in the car?
No, it's my girlfriend's daughter.
Does she know that she's with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Shit.
How are you?
Hey there, sweetie. You want to come back and talk to me back by the police car? How you doing?
Good.
Good? Here, how about right here? Here you go. So what's your name?
Jasmine.
Jasmine? I'm Rebecca. It's nice to meet you.
Nice
How
to
old are
meet
you?
7.
7. Wow. What school do you go to?
Hamashaw Elementary.
Oh, very good. What grade are you in?
2nd.
2nd grade? Did school start late today?
Yeah.
Yeah? Who's this? Who's driving you to school?
Todd.
Todd? Who's Todd?
My mom's boyfriend.
Does your mom know that Todd's taking you to school today?
Yes.
Yeah? Has he taken you before?
No.
No? Does he know where school is?
Yeah.
Yeah? Where's your mom at?
She's at the house.
At the house? Do you know your phone number?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Have you eaten today?
No, not yet.
Are you hungry? All right, well, we'll see what we can do about getting you some food. Okay, just so you know, you're gonna be okay. We're gonna take care of you, all right?
All right.
Don't be afraid of the police. And Todd is gonna be okay too, all right?
All right.
Yeah? He's gonna be safe too.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Got 3 rocks and a pipe.
Okay. River City K-15.
Go ahead, K-15.
Yeah, 15. First of all, we have 11015 for narcotics offenses. Secondarily, we're going to need a tow out to our location and child welfare services to respond also because we have a juvenile female.
K-15.
Yeah, go ahead.
Child Welfare Services is not available for immediate response. They request PD transport the child.
10-4.
Can we just have the mom pick her up?
You know, that's not going to work because of the narcotics. We have a child endangerment issue. River City K-15.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to need another unit out here to transport the juvenile, do the narcotics. I think we have an endangerment issue.
Copy.
I'd rather not transport the J in a patrol car, but I guess that's all we can do.
Yeah, I guess you're right. All right, sweetie, still doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? You're not scared, right?
Right.
Okay, because we're going to take care of you, I promise.
Okay.
We want our officers to start looking at child endangerment not only in the home, but in vehicles and anywhere where there is a drugs or guns. That is an easy access, that's child endangerment to children. That is an immediate notification to Child Welfare Services.
It's important for peace officers to recognize situations that are dangerous to children, like drug sales, drug use, and health hazards, and then provide protection for these children.
When we go into those environments and we make these fantastic arrests and we confiscate all this dope and we take people to jail and we put them away, a lot of cops feel their job is done. And in some ways it is for them. The problem becomes these kids are sitting in a home and somebody else is going to take that guy's place. Their mother's not going to change, and if the mother goes to jail, these kids wind up with some relative quite often in some sort of, for some period of time. And it's the same environment. And as they grow old, they become exposed and they just replace their parents. And we're back in that home.
And there's going to be many, many cases where because of one loophole or one legal issue or some case law that they didn't follow according to the way it's written, where they may lose that case. They may lose the possession for sales case, but that child endangerment case that one's going to get filed every single time.
The crime of child endangerment is not limited to illegal drugs.
The children living in drug-endangered children homes we identify them or define them as being kids under the age of 18 who are living in houses where drugs are used, sold, or manufactured, as well as where there's possibly child abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, where there's general neglect and severe neglect, where there's access to weapons, where there's gang activity and violence in the home, and just a huge array of various child endangerment issues.
Child endangerment comes from Penal Code Section 273A, and there's a felony section, a misdemeanor section. The difference is whether the environment, the drug usage is causing that child to suffer great bodily or likelihood of great bodily injury or not. And basically, it is a crime of criminal negligence. It is a crime that is allowing these children to be in an environment that will endanger their health, be it the needles, be it the chemicals from the lab, be it just the dope that's laying around that these children, very small bodies, higher metabolism, will take in and obviously have tremendous consequences to them.
Basically, children under the age of 5 are at very high risk. They don't go to school, so there's not a teacher that's looking at them unless they're in preschool. That will help. But basically, most of these children are not in preschool. They don't visit the doctors regularly. They don't visit the dentist. You'll see all kinds of different, they have impetigo, they have lice, they have scabies, they have bottle rot in their teeth from basically not getting the medical care that they need. Because when people are on drugs, their number one thing to do is to do the drugs and not take care of the children. The children are an afterthought. Sometimes they are a key to the welfare department, that they get a check, and so this is kind of their livelihood. It's the money that they get from the welfare to turn over to make the drugs.
There's been many occasions where I'll have investigators that will turn in their report, and they won't include the child endangerment on the classification line on that report or include any of the aspects of that particular crime. And I think law enforcement in general are just doing a complete disservice to society by not including that. It really doesn't take much. Just adding the child endangerment charge onto the classification line and then writing a short a blurb into the narrative about what their observations were inside the house. There was the whole house was in disarray. There wasn't adequate food. The child was being exposed to certain types of chemicals, any one of a number of different types of drug paraphernalia.
Felony and misdemeanor child endangerment have everything to do with what type of danger the child could have been in. Locking a child in a car in the hot sun for a few minutes may be a misdemeanor. By the time you get to the car, the child's sweating, a witness maybe statement puts the child in the car for a half hour, 45 minutes. It's 80, 90, 100 degrees out. That may be the difference there between a misdemeanor and a felony filing. As far as the drugs, the weapons, the closer the proximity is or the easier the access is to the child getting their hands on the drugs, getting their hands on a gun, a loaded gun, that might make the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor.
The Drug Endangered Children, or DEC law, was enacted in 2003 in direct response to the methamphetamine epidemic that was plaguing California at the time. The law not only protects children's safety at the time of the drug raid or arrest, but it also protects their health, because these are dangerous drugs, and especially methamphetamine, and what can happen to children exposed to these type of drugs can be lethal and has been lethal in the past.
Well, DEC is a mechanism. It's a formal mechanism by which law enforcement and social welfare agencies can agree to work together, can establish protocols, can delineate responsibilities so that everybody knows their roles and it's very clear how to respond when there's a substance abuse situation in a family.
A DEC protocol is an agreement that you have between the agencies that are the ones who are responsible when children are found in scenarios where there's drug involvement. So you have the buy-in of law enforcement from the top, and you have the buy-in from the Child Welfare Service Agency from the top, and then you decide what's everybody's job going to be. Who can do what, who does it best. So we'll have law enforcement usually be the first person there. We have an agreement that when they encounter children in those scenes, that they're going to call us. They're going to call the Child Welfare Agency. And that we promise that we're going to have our social workers available to those officers so that we can get out there and help with those assessments. And the third tier can be medical professionals available to assess when we think some of those children might have picked up some secondary health issues as a result of whatever they're being exposed to at those scenes. To make a DEC program work, it's not one size fits all. Some of the smaller communities, they're not necessarily going to have the 24/7 availability, or they may not have the same number of officers or even the same kinds of drug crimes happening. So you tailor what works best for your law enforcement, for your social service, and for your citizens in your community, and you make it work. It's never one size fits all.
There's obviously a state mandate to put together a DEC program, but it's to your advantage to put it together in the way that is most comfortable in your particular community. Obviously, these various parts of a DEC program, these people are going to be working either independently, pre-DEC, or with the DEC program, working together. And quite frankly, it's much more efficient use of resources.
You have an opportunity to build a better relationship with the public by letting the press know what you're doing. The press has no idea, if they're not invited, that the cockroaches, the spoiled food, the mold, the kids are sleeping in bedrooms with chemicals, toxic chemicals. We have, in our country, it's kind of ironic, we'll put somebody to, charge them with a felony for cruelty to an animal. But I really believe that the community would be outraged if they saw and demand and support agencies in interdiction and to rescue children if they saw the incredibly negative, deplorable environment these kids are living in. So I think use the press to build your case for DEC.
Peace officers and child welfare workers are mandated reporters of child endangerment, abuse, and neglect.
State law indicates that law enforcement professionals, health professionals, teachers, social workers, we are all deemed what we're called mandated reporters. When we become aware and have knowledge of abuse, endangerment situations with kids, we cannot walk away.
Well, one would hope, again, that officers would do this because of moral and ethical reasons. But the bottom line is we are mandated to report abused children. And in the cases of kids that are involved in homes that are involved in narcotics or living in homes that are not involved in narcotics, that's an abuse situation.
And well, the benefits of the DEC program, first of all, is for the child. It's going to give the child some hope, something in their future besides the gloom and doom of maybe where they're exposed to today.
The biggest benefit, I think, though, is long-term. If we can change the course that a child's on, if we can intercede on that whole generational drug culture, put a child on a different path, hold the parents accountable, change what that child's future is going to be like, the problems they're going to cause for society, for those communities, that's immeasurable. The benefits of that are immeasurable.
We've heard countless stories of people whose children have been taken away, which seems cruel and unusual, and in a perfect world you don't do. But they come back and say thank you because that love for that child was the motivation to become clean and sober. So it's huge. It's very powerful.
Kids come back to mom and dad eventually. Mom and dad are going to see, and kids are going to report, hey, the police officer was really nice to me, and they took care of me, and I think that all you can do is do one or two at a time, and you hope that kids are coming back and reporting back to mom and dad, and hopefully that starts to shape and move parents hopefully into a more positive direction in their life with their kids and with us, dealing with us.
One of the benefits of a DEC program is it limits liability, both personally and departmentally. It's morally right for law enforcement to help the children Now, most law enforcement, they have their children of their own. And a lot of them, see the children out on the street in these impoverished areas, and they think of their own children. And as long as we get back to the golden rule, just treating people the way that we want to be treated, and just putting the focus back on the children, that's what the DEC program's all about.
I think about some of the adults that I encounter in some of these homes and a lost opportunity, because so many of our families are generational, whether it's in a domestic violence, home situation, drugs, gangs, and I can't help but think we missed an opportunity when that parent was a child.
Illegal drug use is a destructive force on people's lives. In this segment, we will examine the impact the drug problem has on our children and our communities. Segments include peace officers and social workers as a safety net for children, emotional trauma and its long-term effects, dangers of proximity to drugs or guns, the dangers of losing a child, how kids learn from adults, and building an asset to law enforcement and the community.
Hi Z, this is Wendy. I'm at the Adams address. I'm going to need assistance with Leo.
Let's finish calling. Why is she making a call on the supervisor? She just needs to check in with her regarding what's going on here right now.
Sorry about the mess. It's been a long week. River City PD.
Rich.
Did you call the police? Well, basically, as part of our investigation, is required that we contact law enforcement to do a joint investigation.
You know, we just got called out here to assist. Can you do me a favor? Just so she looks kind of scared, Rich. Okay. She looks a little bit scared.
Okay. Basically, we were here. We did a child welfare search, and we found some drugs and drug paraphernalia right here in the room.
Okay. Let me show you.
Okay. You know what? Just hang on 1 second. We're going to let him find out what's going on, and then we'll kind of go from there, okay? Yeah? Oh, okay. Hey, do me a favor, Rich. Can you stand up for a second? Stand up. Just stand up for me, real quick. Turn around. Just relax. Rich, relax. Relax. Listen, relax so you're not scared of the kids, okay? Just give me 1 second, buddy. Just don't fight with me, because you got the kids here. Okay? Let me just a quick search on you.
We're not bad parents. We're not bad parents. I just don't understand why you're doing this.
Do you have any more kids?
What we need to do is...
You don't have any other kids at school or anything? Okay. Okay. It's clear. It's clear? Yeah. Okay.
So, what's going to happen?
Well, basically, I'll just follow around with you so you could just make sure that you're checking the rooms to see if there's any other drugs or drug paraphernalia in the home, so we can make sure that we document everything.
Right now, just let them have their conversation, okay? Okay.
This is why I originally called you out. This is what we found. We found 2 crack pipes, a syringe, and a broken lamp, and all within reach of the child. The child is only 3 years old.
Okay. Let me take a look here.
Okay.
Sharp glass right there.
Okay.
Just take a look around. If I find anything, just go ahead and take a picture for me of that, if you would.
Okay.
And you've been to the house before?
No, this was our first time out. We received a referral. It was merely just a child welfare check.
Here's a digital scale.
Okay. Okay.
So we're on the right track. I think this is the room that they probably keep everything in.
Okay.
We see these once in a while. Look at this. Another scale.
Okay.
And then probably at least an ounce. Right there, just sitting on the table in plain view.
And within reach of the child still.
Yeah, right
She's
here.
3.
And look at this.
Let me get a
So
photo.
we've got a couple different types of drugs.
Okay, got it.
All right. Hey, Mike.
We got a good sales case, packaging money, a couple ounces.
Oh, good.
So they're both going to go.
All right.
Okay.
Then I'm going to get him out.
Okay.
Take him to the car. Rich, I'm going to pick you up, and I want you not to show the kids the cuffs, okay? Because they'll get a little scared. So I'm going to pick you up, and then I'm going to hide them and turn around, and we're going to walk out. Okay? Let's go outside. Go ahead and stand up. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and turn around. Just turn this way. There you go. Okay. Let's walk out.
Now, what's going to happen is you're going to go to jail with me, but I want to take you in handcuffs outside, okay? We're not going to handcuff you here in front of the kids, so give them a real quick kiss, and we'll be on our way, okay? Let's not make a big scene.
You want to find me something like that? No, you're right back, okay? Okay. You stay here. It's okay. Come on, Isabel. It's okay. Come on. Come on. Just gonna play right here, all right? Look at these ones. Good, right? Look at these ones right here. Play, Mommy. Yeah. We'll play right now, okay? Come on. Let's put this right here. Yeah.
You go ahead and go to the right here, against the wall. Okay, just wait out here until my partner comes out for a second.
I'm
okay?
not being arrested.
For the narcotics that we found inside. Okay? Okay, I'm just gonna have you stand right here. Okay, just turn around, just face the wall for me. Just relax for a second.
Are you arresting her? Why are you arresting?
Listen,
Why are you arresting
listen,
my wife?
Listen, just relax. It's because relax because what was found inside the house. You guys are both in there, okay? I already called for a backup unit en route.
Okay.
What's going to happen to the kids?
The kids will be
Listen,
safe. They're
listen
going to be
what's gonna
taken
happen to
into
kids.
protective custody.
What? They can't. No, they can't.
It's fine.
No, they can't. You have to let me see them. Who?
Okay,
They can't
listen,
take care of them.
listen,
I'm their
Rich.
mother. I am their mother.
They will
Are they
be
going to be
safe.
okay?
Okay,
They're going to be
be
okay?
fine, but I'm gonna
They're
get you
gonna
out.
will
be
be
scared.
safe.
They're just little kids.
Listen,
They need me.
it's
They don't know what's
fine.
going
Listen,
on. They're
so the
young.
kids
They
are
don't
better.
understand.
Have custody.
Honey,
Okay.
please, please, let me just talk to
It's
them.
fine,
Let's go. Walk this way.
Come on, let's go.
Please, just let me talk to them, please. This is all your fault. I told you. You and your
I'm sorry.
ideas of going into your own business. What were you thinking? Now we lost our children. Are you happy? Okay, come on. Let's hold sister's hand. There we go.
I like the fact that CWS has undergone some type of training for them to recognize the situation as what it was, that there was additional, there were crimes involved there, and they had a procedure or a protocol for them to safely notify us so that they don't put themselves at risk, because the bad guy recognizes that they're there for more than just a visit or a welfare check. They might decide to do something crazy.
What was good about it was the collaboration, the cooperation between the police department and the CWS workers, the joint investigation, the sharing of information, the going through the house together, pointing out different things that maybe one person or one side wouldn't notice but the other would.
Obviously, the two professionals on the scene have seen what was necessary to elevate this from simply a dope case to child endangerment.
It's the obligation of law enforcement to act in the best interest of children. And peace officers, along with social workers, need to be a safety net for children.
We've had situations where there have been major drug raids on homes, and they didn't readily notice that there were even children present, and the family members were not going to divulge that they had children. And we had children coming home after school to empty apartments, not knowing where the heck their parents were. So that in and of itself is incentive to try and do the right thing while you're taking care of the major crime of the drugs, the procurement, the use, the sale, to take that next step and take another look at who else is in that home, who's being affected by what's going on, and what you can do, what safety nets we can put in place to make sure that whatever we decide to do with them at those scenes and in those moments, we're not further endangering them and having another tragedy result.
Right, we're all concerned about the multi-generational impact of substance abuse. Kids that have parents who smoke are more likely to smoke. Well, it makes sense. Kids who watch their parents abuse alcohol or illegal drugs are more likely to do that themselves.
One of the things that I think the meth epidemic has brought about is the need for a community response, is in particular to make sure children are safe. And I think the beauty of the DEC protocol and our obligation as the safety agencies in a particular county, law enforcement, child welfare, medical community, hazmat, whoever is involved in detoxing a scene, so to speak, the DEC protocol is our community response as a safety net for children to make sure that the community remains safe.
child welfare services and law enforcement should be considered that safety net. We shouldn't be perceived as the agencies that arrest and remove children from the homes. We should be perceived as partners that are going into a home to assist the families.
For children, there are many long-term emotional effects from living in a home with illegal drug use.
Some of the long-term effects with the children is that we're now finding out that the children that were exposed to substances, they start using Ritalin and start using psychotropic meds at a young age, and they continue to actually use illicit drugs and illicit substances, and we're now finding that some of them become psychotic, and they actually go into psychotic induced rages. They have mental health issues, and these are the children that are now flooding the system when they become adults.
There's a certain amount of chaos that's involved in a drug home. Sexualized behaviors can occur, if drugs are being sold, then people are coming in and out of a house pretty much all the time, 24/7. If the parents are using at the same time, then they're not being vigilant in how they're watching their kids. So these are kids who are going to be exposed to people who could hurt them, who can molest them. With meth, for example, one of the behaviors that can happen at some point for a meth user is that they have heightened sexual activity. So they might start having sex in front of the children. Other people might. So it can even normalize sexualized behavior, which of course is very unhealthy for children.
One of the things to understand about the development of children is that they don't have the history of information to compare against what they experience. A lot of things when you were a child, that experience is very immediate. So you think your parents are good people. A child wants to believe that their parents are good people. And when you see your parents being treated in a fashion that is disrespectful or that is rough or what appears to you to be heavy-handed, you have a very strong emotional response to that, akin to trauma that a child would experience. Their parents are the most powerful people, you know. Their parents are the people who control everything. Then to see other people come in who are sort of, you know, armored and armed and a unified force, and to hold their parents, restrict their parents' movements, appear to threaten their parents with weapons or whatever, this is very traumatic for a child. It's very difficult for a child to understand that this is someone else's job and that they're just doing their job. To a child, you're hurting my mother, you're hurting my father. And of course, very often these parents resist, which makes it much worse. You know, officer safety really dictates that the officer pay attention to the immediate job. So the child is just an observer, but it's a terrified observer. And that terror stays with that child because that's the lesson that they learn. Even while they're getting their scene safe, officers can remind parents, you know, not to make this a bad thing for your child to see. Remember that your children are here and we want to keep your children safe. You know, let's not do anything to, you know, put your children at risk. Is there anything here that's going to hurt your children? The important thing is not so much that the perpetrators are going to really respond appropriately. The important thing is that the child hears, that the officer notices them and cares about their welfare, because that will stick with the child. Once the scene is secure, it's important to demonstrate a more human and caring side to the children, to ask if they're all right, to ask the children if they have any idea of why the officers are there, to say if they're, to check and see if the child is comfortable. You know, how's your heartbeat going? You know, are you calm? We know things were exciting here for a little while, but now things are calmed down and you're safe. Your parents are going to be safe. Because a lot of times children think they're never going to see their parents again. Children have, you know, they've been provided with some horrible fantasies about what will happen if the police come to the house. We'll be taken away and killed. We'll be taken away and tortured. And that's what kids think. These are fantasies. But kids live in a world that's in and out of fantasy.
Close proximity to guns or drugs in a home presents great physical danger to children.
I had a probationer who was 7 months pregnant, and she had a history of using heroin. She'd had a baby previously that we knew she had when she was using heroin. She was refusing to come in and see me, so I went out and did a home search. I caught her right after she had used some heroin. We arrested this probationer, 7 months pregnant, and I had another police officer there assisting me. I found a loaded syringe in a little area about 3 feet off the ground where her toddler could have found it. I collected that as evidence for my probation violation. Neither I nor the police officer thought to file child endangerment charges. Now these are stories that I pass on to my probation officers and make sure that they file charges like this. We need to get child endangerment out there in the forefront. Now that we're all aware of it, we do need to utilize it.
Yeah, for the average person, I think it's really hard to believe that a home could be so trashed and littered that there would be animal feces on the ground. There would be pornography laying around, for children to pick up and look at. There would be spent needles or drug paraphernalia within reach of children on the coffee table, leftover grains, lines from dope on a coffee table, rotting food, cockroaches. I mean, it's really very disgusting and hard to believe. But once you walk inside one of these places, you immediately, it's a no-brainer. You immediately know that kids should not be in this environment.
There is always the danger of overlooking or losing track of a child. Look for signs of children and always ask, do you have children?
When an officer does go into a home, in the course of looking around and seeing what is on the scene, it's very important that they identify if there are any children in the home. That can be done by a visual scan of noting books or clothing, toys, children's foods. A lot of sugar cereals, for example, is a good indication usually that there's some children in the home. Often enough, when law enforcement goes into a home, the children are not going to be at the home. In fact, sometimes raids happen at a time when children are at school, and in part to reduce the trauma that a child might be exposed to. They should always ask, even if they don't see anything, they should be asking the adults in the home, not just parents who are identified, but any adults in the home or even older children. Are there any other children who are living here? And if they are, then there's a certain follow-up that needs to happen. And that, in fact, is where the child welfare social worker can be of great assistance to law enforcement, because we will quite often be able to do the background work to identify who the children are, where they are, and then go out and find them and make sure that they are safe and that they are accounted for when their parents are being arrested. When a child's living in a drug environment, there's a lot of things that become normalized to a child. Secrecy can become normalized. A whole criminal lifestyle, the whole drug lifestyle can be normalized to them.
We all think that our own home is the way that everyone's home is. And then we find out through sleepovers and mixing that other homes are different. Well, these children don't get the benefit of that. They are always at their own home. They've been trained in often very brutal ways. You don't talk about what goes on in our home. You don't talk to anybody. You don't bring people here. Everyone is against us. Everyone wants to take away what we have. They want to take away our money. They want to take away our home. They want to split us apart.
We are looking at third generation drug abuse. And now these children are being raised in these homes that it's okay to sell drugs. And so what happens is that now their grandmother, their mother, and now they are now using drugs. They've actually been born substance exposed. With the multi-generational drug use, what we're actually looking at is these families are now inundating the systems within the prisons, within the social services, within treatment for mental health, treatment for substance abuse, and also domestic violence.
Children's welfare benefits law enforcement. These are our future citizens or customers. When they're treated properly, they can grow up to be an asset to law enforcement and to our communities.
Being a juvenile narcotics detective That's my entire career at this point has been towards speaking towards that issue of how do we keep kids from becoming drug addicts? How do we keep kids becoming these aberrant individuals in our society? And it's important that we as coppers, and I think my own personal opinion is, it's important that we as police agencies and as a society take a good hard look at that and realize that we have to invest a lot of resources into that problem. And these kids that are coming from abuse situations in these homes are going to become our problems later on. And it's something that we need to address now. So there's a golden opportunity for coppers when they go out to a situation like that, where they find children that are in abuse situations. They can make a tremendous impact. And this is going to be something that can really help in the future. It's, the multiplying of this problem later on down the road when they become adults, we're going to have to spend a lot more money and a lot more resource to try and impact the problem if we just take a good hard look at it and do it now.
These children are going through an experience that's really going to stay with them for life. And it is amazing sometimes to see kids who, they actually do get it. They do understand their parents are doing something wrong. And if they're treated in a way that gives them some pause so that they can get a hold of their emotions, that they can separate out and have it explained to them what their parents were doing that was wrong, why their parents are being arrested, what's going to happen to them, it can change the entire way that they experience this whole situation.
If you want to play it, you can.
It used to be this whole thing of coppers and social workers just didn't mix. But I think what we've come to realize on both sides is the same kind of passion that we have for going after bad guys, that's the same kind of passion that CWS people have for protecting kids and getting them out of bad situations. And we're coming to understand that now, and they understand our passion, we understand theirs, and ultimately we're working for the same thing.
The partnership between peace officers and social workers is the key to a successful DEC program. In this segment, we will address building relationships, training together in co-location, institutionalized relationships, creating policies, procedures, roles, and responsibilities, communication issues, and trust with confidential information.
This relationship can be established if you have a social worker or someone that's in a DEC program that you can work with closely. This can really make your job easier, especially when it relates to kids. A lot of warrants now are involved with homes that are in-house grows, meth labs, whatnot, and there are children present. That's just a reality. And so that reality, again, that can be something that's hanging over a detective's head, and a worry for that detective is, how am I going to deal with these children? The DEC program with DEC units can come out and really alleviate that. And you can establish a relationship with someone that's in your area that you can actually trust. And I know we've had trust issues when it comes to giving out our information on our cases, and that's understandable, because who wants to do all this work and, like I said, serve an empty house warrant? And so it's important that you establish that relationship. And I think little by little you'll realize, and it may not come overnight, but you'll realize that this is something that can really help you.
But I think it's important for investigators to be able to trust, we would call them civilian employees. They're not sworn personnel. But we have to understand as law enforcement that they have their job to do, and that they can be trusted, and that they are reliable. And my experience has been that they're completely reliable, and they've been very professional. I would trust them as much with information on my investigations as I would sworn personnel.
It used to be that we used to go to the same home at different times of the day, not knowing that law enforcement had served a warrant on a drug home, and we were showing up later on in the afternoon alone without law enforcement presence and asking the parent, are you using drugs? Are you selling drugs? Well, they weren't going to be forthcoming. They weren't going to share that law enforcement had perhaps arrested the father who wasn't in the home but was perhaps working, and that's what the story that we got. Different stories, and there was just a more difficult, I think, investigation that was being done because we weren't getting it right.
when we work in doing any type of raid or service of a search warrant, and I know that we're going to be finding, or I believe we're going to be finding a drug endangered child, I do call Child Welfare Services beforehand, arrange to have them come over. I don't have a co-located worker, so I don't necessarily provide them with more information other than where to be at a certain hour. Once they arrive, they generally bring their laptop. They're able to look up the location of where we're going and tell me more information about that location. There's been calls before. There's actually 3 children, not 2. What types of abuse might have occurred before. It's just a great working relationship now that we seem to have developed through these DEC protocols.
Okay, guys, just a little bit on the approach. We're going to come down northbound down Cunningham, and we're just going to drop off right in front of the house. We're going to do the Trojan horse. The front door does have a security gate that looks like it opens outward, so we are going to need the slam ram and also the ram and the hoolie. Pass around the front of the house, and that's about it as far as that portion. Let me just go around the table. Do you have anything?
Hey, just so everyone's aware, the last time I was there, they had a couple of pits in the backyard, but they were chained up.
Good to know. No?
I'll set up a Nextel group talk.
All right. Nothing? Okay. Just want to thank our DEC team came in today to help us out. They're from Child Welfare Services, and it's Yvette and Wendy. They came to help us out. In addition to our normal, searching for dope and guns, what else should we be looking for as far as child endangerment?
Hi guys, just as a reminder, we are here to do an independent investigation. These are going to be specific to child endangerment related issues. As far as the narcotics that we find in the home, we're looking for location, as well as any kind of paraphernalia. We're also looking for any weapons that you might find in the home, any guns, anything along those lines. We're also looking at other child endangerment related issues as far as cleanliness of the home, if we have any feces, any rotten or food at all in the home, any operational utilities, exposed wiring, any kind of exposed piping, other related issues as far as child endangerment is concerned. Okay, I did run the address in our database, and I do find that we have 4 prior investigations for substance abuse as well as other neglect-related issues. As far as I can see, we do have an infant and 2 younger children. We have a dad and another male in the home. Not so sure about a mom. Is there anything else you're looking for?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay.
So, and once we clear the house, you guys are free to come in and do what you guys need to do. And if you do find some evidence of endangerment, Officer Cook here is my evidence collector. Just get a hold of him.
Okay.
He'll be able to document it and document it on his report too as well. Take pictures and stuff.
Okay.
And let's try to be out there and staging within a half hour so we can hit the house. Ready? Let's go.
When they're in that briefing with us, we give them a couple of minutes to talk about what they're looking for. So when they tell the deputies, when they go in that house, what to look for that they may need, it just kind of refreshes in their mind that, hey, if there are kids there, these are some of the things that I need to look for. And by their being present, knowing that they're going to arrive a few minutes after us to take charge of these kids and those family problems, that's significant. They're part of the briefing. They tell us what they're looking for. They listen to what we're going to do when we get there. That relationship is strong. And when they're part of the briefing, there's no questions to be asked. And so if we don't invite them to the briefing, then we have to go through the delays of explaining why we went out on this warrant and what we have.
The best practices for a successful DEC program are to have peace officers and social workers training together, cross-training together, and co-locating at law enforcement agencies.
With the training that we've received on the drug culture and the gang culture, we have a training that is more enhanced from a traditional child welfare services worker because we've learned and obtained information from law enforcement.
Now, in working together and in attending trainings together and in talking with them, we both have a better understanding of what the limitations and parts of our job are. Maybe maybe I should have said, oh, I went to the house and I actually saw paraphernalia, not just the mom was UI or under the influence. Those key little phrases actually help them do their job better. And those are things that I only learned in actually working with and talking with them.
Co-location is something that our agency, as well as other agencies in the state, have gotten involved in. And basically what it means is providing a workspace, office, workstation to a CWS worker, that they come into the station house and work right there alongside our detectives or patrol officers.
Co-location has actually only given us a success in the relationship with law enforcement. We're there. We can talk about our cases. We consult. We train. It's just a complete relationship.
The need to institutionalize programs like DEC, and in Los Angeles County we've expanded on that. It's got to be institutionalized because what you do is you have people that are independent. They're passionate about it. They understand it. But we move on. Los Angeles is big. We have 9,500 cops on our department. And Children's Services work an untold number of people. We move on. We get transferred. We promote. We have different assignments. And when somebody leaves who works well with the program, somebody has to come and take their place. When you institutionalize a program, then it just becomes the norm for everybody who's in this business. And we know it exists, we know what it does, and we begin to depend on it no matter who's in place.
Social workers and peace officers both need policies and procedures that spell out their responsibilities. Clearly established DEC protocol enhances two-way communications, provides for better information sharing, and helps build trust.
Having a protocol in place and having it in a police officer's duty manual just makes it simple. Police officers work on rules and regulations. That's how they implement their policies. Social workers have memos as well. So when it's just integrated into your academy, into your training system, that you have this other resource available to you when you deal with children in the field, it just makes it second nature. It just makes it part of the culture. It makes it a good thing.
What this program can do is help us to expand our vision, to start seeing things other than the dope issues. And if a dope copper's never worked a child abuse unit or never worked a juvenile table where they have to deal with child abuse issues, they may not be well versed in what to look for and how to document it. And so hopefully this program can give those officers some insight in how to, when you're going in, again, it can only help. When you're putting together a dope case, it can only help if you add some child abuse issues.
I understand, though, the whole confidentiality issues, even with CPS, because I've heard people say, I don't trust probation officers, I'm not going to give them any information because they can't keep their mouth shut. Same thing with CPS workers. I understand there's a time that they will find out the details and specifics of the family that we are looking into, the location of the house that we're going to go and serve a warrant at, and they understand, they come prepared to do research on site and work with me. They're flexible in a way that, maybe we wouldn't have expected them to be before.
My observation is that collaboration between agencies, the simple truth that you look out for your own interests as well as those you're working with, produces extremely positive results. You have to be willing to include other players, other stakeholders at the table, but the net result is a better community.
One of the things we found in our work about working with police is police like children. Children identify with police, and police are used to a certain response from children. When the police encounter these children are very different. These children have been trained to resist, to fight, to hate the police, and that's the way they respond. And law enforcement then has a difficult dilemma trying to understand, why is this child acting this way? And at times like these, we tend to take these things personally. And it's important to understand that this child has just been trained to hate the police, to believe that the police is the enemy. And so they're responding to an enemy, not to the individual officer.
The scene of a drug arrest is a very dangerous place for children. In this segment, we will examine the issues of finding children at the scene and taking them into protective custody. Key topics include children at the scene of a drug arrest, pre-planned warrant services, law enforcement is responsible for the investigation of the crimes, and Child Welfare Services is responsible for risk and safety assessment of the children.
Or we operate under the provisions of the Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 300 A through D, that has to do with protective custody of minor kids, minor children that are involved in situations where they are in danger. Our job is not done just simply because we knocked the door down, recovered the drugs, and got the bad guy. You know, we don't just have a drug charge here. We have an endangerment as well, and we have to get other people involved, and we have to be further involved in this until those kids are fully safe. When we look at it that way from the get-go and say, we have a crime here, or a possible crime, then our law enforcement gearbox shifts a little bit, and we start, okay, where's the evidence of this crime? What am I going to need in order to support my belief and opinion that this is a crime in which I am going to book this person for later?
I guess some of the things that might indicate child abuse or child neglect or endangerment could be things like dirty diapers on the floorboard of a car, or we've been in numerous houses for search warrants, and backyards are not just strewn with animal feces, but it's also children's. You have dirty diapers, and you have the toys and the pools, the little pools that the kids have, and they're just filled with moss and just things growing in there that you wouldn't let your dog go swimming. And it's important to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and look for those exposed wires. Look for those needles on the ground that are accessible to children. Again, it's just taking that extra little step to look for something else just besides the narcotics or the $400,000 in cash that you're looking for.
Just the drug house by its very nature is an endangerment neglect issue. If you're having strangers come in and out of that house, the drug dealers don't care who those strangers are. They'll sell to anybody in most cases. So who knows who's coming in the house? And they don't care about the kids. They're usually outside at all times of the day or night. They're not well dressed, or they're not dressed for the conditions. If it's really cold outside, they won't have jackets on, things like that.
When an officer is on scene, in a home, on a car stop, someplace where they're involved in an investigation with a social worker, they need to be looking for evidence of toys. What age is sort of dictated by the toys that are there? Are there pacifiers and other small things, or is it little trucks and cars and dolls and things? So that they may only have one kid there, but there's some evidence that they're seeing that maybe indicates that there's a toddler or someone much smaller, much more helpless, who's at the house. Then they need to start asking questions about where's the younger one, where's the older one, how many kids do you have, things like that, to sort of paint the picture, because the parents, the people who are in custody aren't necessarily going to volunteer all this information, and you may have to pull it out of them.
When planning a warrant service, officers need to alert Child Welfare Services if there is a possibility children might be at the scene.
With warrant services, it's best to tell us sooner rather than later. The dilemma happens when law enforcement goes out and serves a warrant, arrests a bunch of people, recognizes the next morning that, that probably wasn't the best spot for those children, and calls us the next day. Problem with that is we maybe can't find the children by the next day, or those issues that were present that would have allowed us exigency to legally protect those children are cleaned up and gone. So we're always asking our officers, call us before. We can keep that information quiet and small and confidential, and we'll make ourselves available to you anytime when you're serving those warrants.
In a pre-planned warrant service where we know that we're going to have children present because we've identified them prior to the event, prior to the search warrant, most oftentimes your search warrant preparation is going to include the names of the children and the ages of the children, so that the officers and the judge know that you're going to go to rescue those children and that there's going to be some drug nexus. If we are able to identify that there's persons under the influence of drugs and there's other dangers, then immediately those children are placed in protective custody of law enforcement officers on scene.
River City Police, search warrant, open up! River City Police, search warrant!
River City PD, search warrant, hands up, hands up!
Search warrant, wrap around,
I got him. Just wait right here, son, okay? Just wait right here.
Okay, have a point, open door right!
Okay.
Open door straight ahead, last door!
Small room.
With you. Room's cleared.
Coming out.
Room's clear, coming out. Clear left!
Daddy.
Look, coming out. On the ground, on the ground.
Walk over there.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, you guys good? Yeah, I'm gonna clear.
I'm coming through, okay? Come on. Come on. Just have a seat over here, okay? Okay. Honey, why don't you sit up here, okay? Hey guys, everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna be safe, okay? Everything's gonna be okay. No one's gonna get hurt, okay? Your dad's gonna be all right, okay?
What about the uncle?
Your uncle's gonna be okay, okay? Just keep looking at me. Everything's fine. You'll be safe, okay?
I'm gonna roll you on your side.
Put your left leg in.
Good boy. Good boy.
Show me. Show me. Good boy. I think we've got something here.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Here.
Hey guys, come on, let's go sit over here by the kitchen table, okay? Come on. Come on. Okay. Would you have a seat, okay? Hey, listen, we're just gonna sit here for a little while, okay? All right? Just try to relax. Everyone's gonna be safe. You guys are gonna be okay. I see we have some things here. Are these your crayons here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah? What about that DS? Is that yours? Okay. If you want to play it, you can, okay? We're just gonna sit here for just a little bit. And honey, you can draw if you like. Okay?
Hey, let's get our child welfare service to come in. Hey, how's it going?
Good morning.
Hey, we're done with our search, and we got some crack and a gun. And there's also 2 kids in the house.
Oh, okay. Are the kids okay?
Yeah, they're good. They're okay.
Oh, okay, good. We can go ahead and start our investigation. If you can have one of the officers walk us through the home so that we can start documenting what you found, where you found it, and other child safety concerns.
Okay.
Okay?
Officer Cook was my finder, so he'll, you guys can go ahead and head in.
Okay.
And he'll be in there in a minute. He'll show you where everything was at.
All right, great.
So how much dope was found?
Like half an ounce.
Oh, that's it?
After we wrap this up, we'll go back and do another briefing.
Hey guys, can I introduce you to a couple of friends of mine? Okay, they're really nice ladies. This is Wendy and Yvette. Okay.
Hi, guys.
This is Dimitri and Tika.
Hi.
Okay. And they're going to want to talk with you for a little bit. Okay. They're going to keep you safe and help you out. Okay.
Okay, if you can just let the officer know outside that we'll need to speak with Dad before he goes. We got to get some important medical information on the kids and any other urgent care needs that they may have at this time.
Sure, I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to check on your dad and uncle for you. Okay. Make sure they're safe.
Okay. Okay, Wendy, I will go ahead and handle talking with the kids right now, interviewing them, if you want to continue with the other investigation with law enforcement. Okay. Okay, good morning. You're Tika, right? Hi, Tika, I'm Yvette. Nice to meet you. And you're Demetrius. Yvette, nice to meet you. I'm here to talk with you for a little bit and let you know about what's going on here, keep you guys safe, okay? So we're going to just talk about some simple stuff. Is that okay? You think you'll be okay with that? Oh, okay, good. So your name is Tika, right? All right, Tika. How old are you?
7.
You're 7. Wow, you're a big girl.
Okay, Wendy, basically the dog hit right over here. See this blue container?
Okay.
There were crayons in there and also 8 individually wrapped polywogs of crack.
Okay.
So it was right here, and just sitting here with the crayons.
Wow, I mean, that's definitely child endangerment. I mean, it's within reach of the kids. And look, okay, we have some exposed wires. This is definitely a safety hazard right here. Can you get a photo of that?
Sure.
I'm just going to document what I found and where it was located.
Okay, Wendy, believe it or not, this is actually where I found the gun, right underneath the dolls. It was just sitting right here on the mattress. It was a loaded Beretta 9mm.
Well, this definitely looks like child endangerment, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just measure it so I can have the information for my report. Yeah, it's 28 inches. So this is definitely within reach of the child. So I'll just document that information. Was there anything else found in the room?
No, that's it.
No? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
What officers can do, what we've done in the past is taken the child and put them in a different room from where mom or dad or whoever happens to be supervising them is at, and just explaining to them about what policemen are and what policemen do and why policemen have to do the things they do sometimes. And even if they're not really getting the message, they are getting the tone of your voice. They are getting your ability to get down on their level and explain things to them. And I think that goes a long way, even if they don't understand the whole policing concept. It still goes a long way to a child. And explaining to them about making things safe, explaining to them about why you're there to make them safe, and just keep reiterating that message, and it'll sink in. And if you're going to be removing the child or the children from the home, and the introduction, if you've built a rapport with a child, then the introduction of the social worker, and this is a friend of mine, and they're here to help keep you safe. Remember what we talked about, and that kind of thing. It's you can't just give it 30 seconds and think it's going to have long-term effects. You need to spend some time with the kid, just like you would your own, and explain things to them, and give them a tone of voice, and give them the attention that they deserve. A child seeing that kind of thing, that could quite literally be the worst day of that child's life. And by you spending some time with the child and letting them see you as a real person who's no longer screaming and yelling, "Police, get down," then the child sees you differently than they did. They're not afraid of you, and they understand that you're there, that you're not the bad guy. You're there to make things better for them.
At the scene, it's law enforcement's responsibility for investigating crimes.
In law enforcement, when we go into these homes where we find weapons, we find the drugs, and we call on Children's Services to come out, the DEC program, and they arrive, what a lot of times happens is law enforcement shifts the child problem onto Children's Services, and we continue with whatever the other problem is, narcotics, guns, violence, whatever we're there for initially. When a child is endangered, that is a crime. Now, law enforcement knows that, but we don't tend to pursue that end of it. We've got a drug dealer, he's selling narcotics, we find the dope, we got the suspect, The child goes away with Children's Services, and we're glad. The kid's protected, and we're doing our job. We need to step that up. We've got to make sure that we always include the endangerment in the arrest. So when we write that report, the information about the arrest, it could be a simple paragraph. We just mention in there how that child was exposed to the narcotics in that home. Doesn't have to be on the table they're sitting at. It's just accessible to a child, which almost could be anywhere in the house. All we have to do is put that in a paragraph, put it on the charge line. Children's Services takes care of the kid. We don't have to worry about that. We take it to the district attorney, and it gives him more options to file on this guy. And quite often, they're going to enhance his time. We could lose the sales on maybe not a very good case or not a good enough case, but yet get him on the endangerment. Maybe even get the wife or other people in the house on the endangerment. We can't ignore that charge.
Law enforcement officers will get a much better response from both the district attorney and the courts in preparing this case because, one, these children are victims. They're recognized as victims by the court and by the prosecutors, and they're going to want to be able to provide the very best court case outcome on this investigation.
At the scene, Child Welfare Services is responsible for the risk and safety assessment of the children.
The final responsibility for determining child endangerment is that of law enforcement's, but they're not alone. Particularly if you do have a DEC protocol in place, you have social services, child welfare social workers available to you to go along with you down that path to assess the safety and those elements that are present in the home that will bring you to that threshold of child endangerment. And then you're not left alone at that juncture as well. They're going to be able to come up with a number of resources and other avenues that we can go down to keep those children safe in that home or to put them in another safe place until things settle down. If the risk to the child is deemed so serious that law enforcement and social workers decide that the child needs to go into protective custody, there's a need for another social worker to decide if there's enough to petition to a court, to family court, the need for dependency.
In a dependency hearing, also known as a Welfare Institution Code 300 hearing, a judge hears evidence from the social worker, usually from the Children's Services Division, as to how these children are endangered and what is the best interest of the child at that point. It's all child-centered as to what's going to happen with these children. Should these children be returned to these parents and to that environment, or should they be taken out? And it usually splits at that point. They may be taken out and never returned because the parents don't get it together. Or the court can and will make various conditions for those parents to get those children back, and that is to clean up and rehabilitate. And if they do that, then they can get their children, and should get their children back with very close scrutiny of the social service.
When conducting an investigation and collecting evidence, peace officers can benefit when they team up with social workers at the scene. It can strengthen both the drug case and the child endangerment case. Segments include always call Child Welfare Services early, decide who takes the lead during joint interviews with children, dual documentation and report writing, forensic drug testing, interviewing children, decontamination of children found in a lab setting, and consult with your district attorney on endangerment issues.
I'm sick of the crap being everywhere, and get this crap cleaned up. You got 2 freaking hands. It's time to clean it up and keep her off my goddamn computer. I'm sick of that stuff too. There's
River City Police, River City Police, sir, come here.
Wait,
come here. Turn around, turn your hand. Come here. Just relax for a second, please. Relax. Until we figure out what's going on. Keep your hands behind your back. We got a call and we want to know what's going on here. Just, I don't want you moving on me. Okay? Just relax.
Why are you putting handcuffs on it?
We need to figure out what's going on.
Just relax. You live here?
Yes.
Okay, do me a favor. Sit down. Sit down right here. It's your neck. Okay, just relax. Do not talk. Just sit there for a second. Anybody else in the house?
No.
Nobody else? Okay. You guys have kids?
No.
No kids? All right. I see a bunch of kids' books, a backpack, and stuff over on the table.
They're her stupid kids.
Okay. All right.
Is that true? How many kids do you have?
2.
Okay. Are they home now?
No, they're at school.
Okay. You mind if I take a look real quick? I'll be right back, Mike.
Okay.
Mike, the rest of the house is clear. No one's home. But I did find a large marijuana grow in the back. There's wiring and water, and it's a whole production everywhere.
All right. I'm going to call.
Okay.
Control 2301.
Go 2301.
Yeah, we got 11015. It's a good DV. Further.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a possible child endangerment issues. Can you have a CWS team and also a narcotics team respond out here, please?
Copy.
Hello, Child Welfare Services.
Hi, Officer Johnson.
Yvette,
Wow,
nice to
you're
meet you.
fast getting here.
I'm here to assist with the investigation that's going on here.
Okay. I'll tell you what we have. We got called out. The neighbors heard a bunch of noise, and it's a domestic violence situation.
Okay.
So he's under arrest, and we're not sure what's going to happen with her yet. But the problem is there's 2 kids, and the kids aren't here right now.
Okay.
They're at school. Okay.
Okay.
And then while we were searching through the house, we found some marijuana that was growing in the back room, and we're not sure. I mean, that's an issue, but we don't know about the child endangerment issue, so that's why we called you out.
Okay.
So if you can take a look at that, then you can let us know.
Oh, great. If I can have the officer just walk me to the back so that I can start documenting what you found, where you found, and the other child safety concerns. And then I can walk back around and talk with Mom and Dad about what's going on.
Officer Cook can walk you through there, and he'll show you what he found.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
So here's our marijuana grow, and the things that look dangerous to me right away are the standing water and the exposed wiring.
Okay, do we have any other chemicals?
Yeah, there's some fertilizer on the right-hand side.
Okay, how about some paraphernalia?
No.
No baggies, scales? Okay. Okay.
So this is the last bedroom. I didn't find anything noteworthy in here.
Okay, I will go ahead and contact my supervisors so that a coworker of mine can go out and pick up the kids from school. That way I can stay here and interview the parents.
Okay.
And then I'll meet you back at your station?
Great. Yeah, we'll compare notes.
Okay, great. Okay.
One of the things that was important here is that law enforcement recognized the importance of having another set of eyes, that they understood the importance of CWS coming to document the scene, because law enforcement understands evidence. And this is a different type of evidence. And once having that information from the scene, then CWS is able to act in a way that most people would expect. Whereas if they came a day later, that evidence wouldn't have been there. CWS would not have been able to act to protect those children. The other thing I like is that they dispatch someone to the school so that the children don't return to an empty home.
Now, typically when law enforcement encounters a cultivation of marijuana incident such as this, then there's many occasions where the case would be thrown out for one thing or another. There could be some type of case law violation or some type of potential loophole. However, as long as law enforcement identifies the child endangerment issue involved here, then that case is not going to get dropped.
One of the things in Los Angeles we found with the DEC response is that when we initiated this, there's 2 ways they're going to be there. They're going to be there at the time you are, like on a warrant service. We know children are present. They'll show up with us, so they're there. If we do a warrant, we don't know kids are present, or if we're called there, what we do is we get there, and when we decide we need children's services, we call them. One of the problems is that even during a warrant operation or on a call, when we see that we've got guns, when we see that we have dope, and we know we're going to make an arrest, we have kids present, we were running into a problem where the officers, deputies were inside the house, and about 2 hours later, when we're ready to leave, they'll call children's services, and then we have to wait. The idea is when you get there, have somebody on call from children's services, somebody you know that's going to be accessible to you. When you get there and you find that you have a problem, you know you're going to need their service, call them now. So before you're done with your search, before you leave, they'll show up. And now they're going to be there to help you with your problem rather than somebody either have to wait there, or what makes it even worse, if you leave, now they can't just show up and independently go on and search the house. As long as you have reason to be in there, you've now invited them in. They can be part of that problem.
It's important to decide who should take the lead during joint interviews with children. Always ask open-ended questions and be sensitive to any spontaneous disclosures. Remember, social workers are good at communicating with children.
When law enforcement and child welfare work cooperatively together, whether that be that they do a joint interview, choosing who's going to do the lead and making sure both sides get their questions answered, or whether one person does the interview and the questions are fed from the other side, whether that be law enforcement or child welfare, the benefit is that both agencies get their forensic investigatory needs met.
One way that's very helpful is if the two services kind of make a decision about who's going to lead the interview. By working together and by having a history of some cross-training, you're going to know what the other service wants and needs. But whoever is going to lead so that the child is not buffeted by two different people. Children's attention span obviously is a lot shorter, and it's better when they can stay focused on one person and the other person be there in more of a supportive manner. We always have law enforcement introduce us, bring us into the home. So it's not the good cop, bad cop, but it is, you have two people who are really looking for the same information, for the same purpose, for the protection of the child, but they're working together and that they don't have to compete to get the information, but they're doing it collaboratively. One of the things about being a child is you're very inquisitive about what people are trying to keep secret. So children are very good at sniffing out the secrets in a house. When you tell a child, don't go here, well, children know that there's something there. So you're going to get that information. And sometimes it will allow you, when you talk to a child, to say to law enforcement, well, perhaps, the officer would like to know more about that. Or can you show the officer where that particular place is? And children are willing to do that. Because once you convince a child that you're there to protect them, to make their life easier, they're going to be willing to work with you and to help you.
And when we ask a child, do you know why we're here? They will tell us. They will tell us where the parent has stored the drugs, when the parent last used. They'll tell us, my mommy goes to the garage and comes back and she's not the same, or we know that she's used drugs. We know that. Or they'll tell us where the drugs are, where the guns are. They will show us where they can find the guns or the drugs, because they see this going on in their home and they know where it is, but nobody's ever asked.
Officers and social workers should collaborate on documentation and report writing. This can enhance the investigation, strengthen the case, and minimize trauma to the children.
Once we've determined that there are drug-endangered children in a home, I call in CWS, and together we walk through the home. Now, the officers generally will have already found whatever evidence they see that indicates drug sales, drug use is occurring in the home. They wait till I get there with the Child Welfare Services worker, and together we both see everything that has been found.
And you might be well-versed in narcotics issues, but you may not be well-versed in child abuse issues. To have a CWS worker there with you that can really kind of bring to your sight, your vision, some of these issues that you may not see under other circumstances, to have them there working with you, they can actually direct you.
I think police officers need to be mindful when they're responding to these drug-related scenarios to, in addition to looking and doing their normal evidence collecting techniques, they have to at the same time think about how the proximity of those dangerous elements relate to child endangerment.
When officers notice an endangerment crime, the most important thing is attention to detail. Thoroughly document what their observations are, what the condition of the house is, what the hazards are, and to properly articulate it in a report. Thoroughness is the most important part. It's difficult to describe in court. It's difficult to say this is what the police report says. Defense attorneys attack that. But if it's video evidence, if it's photographic evidence, if you can describe it as the photographs and the videos being played in court, that's a whole lot easier, and juries are very receptive to that. And they're not very forgiving to suspects who put children in danger.
Having an agreement, informal otherwise, about, hey, can I get a copy of your report? I'll give you a copy of mine. You're really both complementing and benefiting each other's investigation.
As you're walking through a child's bedroom, you would notice the proximity of drugs or chemicals. Is it a child who can reach up to a table by the bed or the coffee table where there's something readily reachable? Are there things like syringes readily accessible to the children? Are the chemicals that are being cooked or used or stored in a way that children are going to be either breathing the fumes or being able to get into it? So you have to look at it at two levels. One, the level of sheer evidence collection. Two, shift to your mode of child endangerment and look at the accessibility of all of those same dangerous and illegal elements. What is their accessibility to those children, and in what way are they placed in danger by those present?
We're looking at storage. Where are the drugs stored? And believe it or not, they're usually stored in children's rooms, in children's backpacks, in children's toy boxes, in children's cribs, because the parent or the person doesn't think that law enforcement will encounter these drugs in the children's belongings. We've encountered children who've actually have had bags of cocaine in their coats, in their backpack. And what officers sometimes do is will give that backpack to the child for comfort. But they don't stop to think that maybe that's where the drugs are kept. And that child has been told by a parent, you keep this and you take it with you. Don't give it to anybody else. Don't give it to the social worker. You give it to your relative.
We had a case where there was drug sales going on in the home. It was the young child's mother and her boyfriend and his family that were conducting the sales. We had the child stand up. We measured him. We had him raise both arms, see how far he could reach, to indicate that he could have easily reached the drugs that were found in the home. Also, in any investigation, we often talk to any neighbors to find out what they've seen in terms of neglect. Has that child been out alone all the time? Does there appear to be a lot of traffic and the child is in the mix of it?
Judges become rather jaded over a continual diet of an 8-ball or a 10th of drugs and so forth. But if you bring in that case plus show how it endangers the children, that's an entirely different case. That's a case that even the most jaded of judges will sit up, take notice of, and give appropriate sentences.
Many times it's important that after we do a drug bust, that we actually test the children for levels of methamphetamine, of crack cocaine, of marijuana, because a lot of times it's in small quarters where these drugs are being manufactured and made, and so the children are exposed to a lot of these drugs.
We have recommended, the County of Butte has recommended that each county obtains a standardized court order from their juvenile court judges to allow law enforcement and social services to collect the necessary testing. That's relatively easy to do. It needs to be obviously verified by a physician, possibly more than one physician, to recommend the testing guidelines. But it is something that if we're doing this for the well-being of the children, social services can test those children.
Child welfare social workers are experienced in interviewing children. And one of the benefits that we can bring to a DEC protocol and to working with law enforcement is the ability to sit down with a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 15-year-old who might be angry or scared or confused about what's going on and pull information out to get accurate information.
You need to get them in somewhat of a neutral location when you're interviewing children, away from their parents, so they're feeling comfortable and not feeling like they're being disloyal in the things that they're telling you. And remember that you're big and in a uniform and have weapons on, so you try and get them down at eye level. Make yourself small. Make yourself at least as small as they are.
Quite often, law enforcement is very wrapped up in making sure the scene is safe, and which is their job to do. And as social workers, we're quite happy to have law enforcement make the scene safe for us as well as for the children. So while they're doing that, we can take the time, bring the children into another room, get them in a calmer environment. There's several benefits to that. One, it really doesn't do any good for a child to see their parent arrested. It's upsetting. It's scary quite often to them. It will make them clam up. They will be more focused on being afraid or angry and can become quite hostile towards law enforcement.
It's just like domestic violence. If you walk into their home, you have an officer coming into your home telling you to sit down, and now you're in charge of a husband and wife's home, and they're not used to that. So just like you talk to them with respect, and you talk to them and you tell them what's going on and telling them things are going on, it's the same thing with a child. It doesn't matter if they're 5 or 17. If you take the time and you treat them with respect and you take the time to tell them what's going on, why you're there, what your other officers are doing, why officers are going through their house, why they're talking to mom and dad, why is mom and dad in handcuffs. I think it's important to let these kids, they don't have to know every negative thing and every bad thing that mom and dad do, because that's not what a 5-year-old needs to know. But there's a way to massage that into a way where you can talk to a 5-year-old.
And the thing is, in the absence of someone explaining what's going on, children will make up their own definitions. They'll make up their own explanation of why their parents are being put on the ground and handcuffed, why their parents are screaming, why their guns being pointed at them, why the police officers are screaming. And very often a child will make up an answer that just makes sense in their world. So if they've had it explained to them that police are bad, for example, they're immediately going to assume that the police are the ones who are wrong in a situation where their parents are being arrested. If we can, and by we, I mean child welfare and law enforcement and whoever else is responding on a DEC response, if we can make the situation explainable to them in a way that's honest and puts perspective on it, they will ideally take that with them.
When you interview a child, you don't ask where the drugs are. You ask them, do you know why we're here? More often times, they know why we're there because it's happened before. But we've been able to, the social workers have been able to ask those open-ended questions. Do you know why we're here? Do you know, do a lot of people come to your home? When do they come over? Do you smell anything funny in the room? Does your mommy behave differently after she's put that cigarette in her mouth? What does that cigarette look like? And they can describe to you and tell you so much.
When you talk to children, remember to ask the open-ended question, because otherwise you're going to get yes and no answers. You won't get the detail you need. So always ask a question that will allow a child to elaborate. One of the little catchphrases that we use when a child will say, I saw mommy with some white powder on a mirror, you would say, can you tell me some more about that? Rather than, what was she doing? Tell me some more about that. And it takes them down that path of giving you more information, yet at the same time, you're not leading them. Rather than directly eliciting a comment, what is your parent doing? Is your parent using drugs? Listen and let them disclose to you. Those disclosures that aren't so spontaneous and that are seen as being manipulated or pulled out of the child end up not being useful in court. We can be accused of leading the child along those lines. So for the purposes of the best documentation and the best child endangerment cases, be very aware of those spontaneous disclosures that children make and document them as such. Depending on how thoroughly enmeshed in the drug culture the children are, you get different levels of stories told. The older children become protective and are clamming up. But the younger ones who are just sort of figuring out, this isn't right, this isn't normal that my mom sleeps all day and is awake all night. Everybody else has their lunch waiting for them in the morning. Nobody else is getting themselves up because their mom's passed out. They'll start to tell you, just narrating these stories about what their lives are like. And that's where this wealth of information comes from that builds your case.
It's important to properly decontaminate any children found in a drug lab setting.
it's really imperative that the local law enforcement in your jurisdiction, along with your social services and a medical provider, preferably your county medical staff, determine what's best, what the best avenue is to decon children in these homes. It varies from state to state and county to county. There's a national recommendation for how to decon children, and that's with the National Alliance for Drug Endangered Children, which can be found online. We want to make sure that on scene a child's clothing are left behind, that you're able to take the child to a secure area where there's some privacy, whether you put up a tarp or a blanket or a towel, that the children are disrobed, preferably if they're male children, that you have a male officer assist them. If you have female children, you have a social worker or a female officer assist them, that they're washed down, and that might be using just baby wipes or fresh wipes, sanitary wipes, to clean as best you can the child. If possible, that you can have a shower available, obviously for warm water so they're not cold, and that you have clean clothing to put these children into immediately. If you have no clean clothing available, which many social workers carry in their vehicles and many DEC programs have available in their cars, the officers that primarily do DEC investigations. If not, that you want to put them in a clean blanket. Sometimes it might be just a CHP blanket that they have in the back of their car, and then transport them immediately to a hospital or care facility where you're going to notify them in advance that you're bringing the child in so that they can be prepared at the medical site and that there's no contamination done to their facility.
It's up to the district attorney in your area to determine if parents will be charged with the crime of child endangerment. If you have questions, it's best to contact your district attorney for more information on endangerment issues.
What we hope the DEC law will do is encourage more counties to develop a law enforcement and child protective service agency protocols so that they can respond properly to children who are involved in dangerous drug situations.
Creating a DEC program in every community in California is strongly encouraged, and it's the right thing to do. This mandate encourages multi-jurisdictional professional groups made up of law enforcement officers, prosecutors, public health professionals, social services, probation and parole officers to collaborate in the development of written standards, protocols, and procedures to create a local DEC program in communities statewide. Additionally, a memorandum of understanding between all stakeholders is a key element. The memorandum should address felony and misdemeanor arrests, the immediate response of child welfare workers to a narcotic crime scene involving children, the outsourcing of child welfare workers to law enforcement, dependency investigations, forensic drug testing and interviewing of children, decontamination of children found in a lab setting, and medical examinations and developmental evaluations. Now let's hear how the first DEC program in California got started in Butte County.
Basically, it just started from a very simple meeting in which myself, the commander of the local narcotics task force, and the head of our social services got together and agreed that when there was children in a drug home, that we would respond together.
You know, implementing the Drug Endangered Children program was such a simple process. I know that we're in a small county in Butte. We were 3 or 4 people who, like-minded, identified victims that needed help. We sat down to the table together to develop what our memorandum would say and our protocol would say. But it's something that we all should be doing. It doesn't matter whether you're a small county or a large county. Some of the success stories of those rescues, and we have hundreds of them since we started this so many years ago, are just a number of mothers of parents who had been drug users for many years, had been repeatedly arrested and in and out of jail and prison, and really said that until we removed their children permanently, some permanently, many by the court where they had a long road of work in order to get their children back, said that was the turning point in their life. Sacramento is in its early stages. It's not as big as some other counties, LA County, but we're really looking forward to building this in Sacramento. The response has been very positive, that they feel that we need a huge DEC team and more social workers actually doing this, but it does take a special person that's able to work collaboratively with the police department.
In Los Angeles County, we started with the DEC program a few years ago, and initially it was really a meth lab program where kids were exposed to meth labs. And then it expanded to other narcotics. It was pretty clear that meth isn't the only drug problem these kids are exposed to, and then it expanded into other narcotics. Well, we looked at that, working gangs, and said, what about these kids that are in homes with gangs? We've got guns in these homes. We have automatic firepower in these homes. We have handguns in these homes. So not only are they impacted by the drugs in Los Angeles as everywhere else, but they're impacted by the violence and the gangs and what they bring to the table. So we expanded it. So rather than just call it DEC, in LA County they also call it MART, Multi-Agency Response Team. And we're looking at any endangered child, regardless. We call on them to come and assist us.
And I must tell you, the beginning was a little difficult. It was challenging, and not by child welfare services, but by law enforcement. It was a culture that had to get used to us, but they're our best friends. In fact, they call us many times before they call the other partner agencies, before they call parole or probation. And there is hope in this relationship because it's a partnership that I said that is like no other.
Well, in Santa Barbara County, we created our DEC protocol in May of 2006. It was a formal agreement and a plan between all the local law enforcement agencies, meaning the police departments and sheriff departments and probation, and child welfare services and the district attorney's office.
My experience with the Joint Response Program in Santa Clara County is that, like anything else, when it first came out, there's always, I was a little bit skeptical, wondering how it was going to work. And having used the Joint Response Program on a number of occasions, I've had many opportunities to work with great social workers who are sympathetic to what law enforcement is trying to do, who are very complimentary in their style of investigations to what law enforcement is trying to do.
Richmond doesn't have a DEC program. It's never had a DEC program. There are a lot of challenges law enforcement-wise in Richmond. It's a great community. It's a diverse community. But in some areas, gangs and drugs are a problem. I can't think of a better community where a DEC program would be useful and viable than Richmond. So I've taken the initiative to try to start a DEC program. What I've done is I've met with the district attorney, deputy district attorney that's stationed in our police department. I contacted our local child welfare services department and had a couple of their workers come down to meet with us. We discussed the issues related to a DEC program. It was very interesting. The deputy district attorney during the meeting said that he was a little embarrassed and a little surprised that he'd never heard about a DEC program. So he was a little taken aback by that, but he was committed to it. He understood what a difference it could make in a community like Richmond. The CWS workers were very enthusiastic. They went to their superiors and they received the full go-ahead. I believe the exact words that I was told by her was, whatever it takes to get a DEC team started in Richmond, we'll do. So I have the commitment from the CWS workers. I have the commitment from the district attorney's office. I got sample policies and protocols. I got sample MOUs of a DEC program. I put it together. I put a nice little cover memo on it, and I sent it up through the ranks. And I'm looking forward to hearing from our command staff what they think about it and what. All I need is the go-ahead. I have a pretty good idea how it will work in Richmond, how it will work very well in Richmond. So that's not a problem. And command staff's just reviewing it. And I'm not talking long ago. This was given to them a week and a half ago. So command staff sometimes takes a little bit of time to review things and see how it's going to impact the police department, budget issues, things like that. But I expect an enthusiastic response from them too, because truly there is no reason not to push this forward. This is going to be a very successful program in Richmond, and it's not going to take much to do it.
Creating a DEC program in your community is the right thing to do. It brings hope that children can break the cycle of drugs in their families and go on to lead normal lives. Anyone can get the process started. For help and information on creating a DEC program, simply contact one of the departments featured in this training and obtain a copy of their protocol to get the ball rolling. We've come to the end of our telecourse. On behalf of the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, we appreciate your participation. Now let's listen to the final thoughts from our subject matter experts.
If we don't protect these kids today, we're going to need to be protected from them in the future. That's a no-brainer. And I think that if we realize that by doing something about these kids today, that we may see them in school later rather than back in our custody, that's important.
We as coppers have a tendency to be repulsed by new stuff. We think it's more bureaucratic stuff, but this is not the case. It's one of those things that can really help you out. This can really take the burden off your shoulders and off your mind about having to deal with a bunch of kids who need to be placed and properly placed for their protection.
The impact that you have on their life is something that can affect them from that point forward. The image that you give them as a law enforcement officer is something that they hold with them forever. And it could be a positive image where you helped them. You were seen arresting their parents, and that's traumatizing, but at the same time, you took them from this horrible situation and gave them an opportunity to become something better.
It just behooves all of us to remember children are victims in this. No matter how they're acting, no matter what's going on, no matter whether they are upset or dejected or hiding or not at home or in the home defending their parents, they're still victims and they need a certain amount of resources and protection from the community.
When you encounter this child, this is a person who's been trained to think of you as the enemy. The deck is stacked against you. They've had years of being told that you're a bad guy, but you have a very brief window to turn it around. You have an opportunity to make a friend. You have an opportunity to show that you're not a bad guy, that you care about children, and that, in fact, you even want to protect the child's parents. You want to preserve their home. You just don't want to preserve the crime.
If you rescue this child today, when you go out and make your next case, this child, for the first time in probably months, if not ever, is going to have a clean place to sleep, in clean sheets, with somebody that cares about them, with somebody that's going to give them a meal tonight, send them to school in the morning, and ask them how their day went. And in most of these children's lives, they don't have that kind of care.
Is just simply taking that one shift of your focus from the more narrow focus of looking at drugs and evidence and seizing and documenting that, and just broadening your lens a little bit to seeing those kids on the couch, asking those questions, eliciting that information from them, and calling the social workers as part of your DEC protocol. You have an incredible ability to change people's lives with what you do, and I hope they understand that.
Of all the situations you might be in where you thought, man, I wish I could go back and change that, don't miss an opportunity to help a child, removing them from a dangerous drug environment. Don't miss an opportunity to make their life better.
But also, the involvement of law enforcement in the family means that the parents are going to be required probably to take parenting classes, to take substance abuse classes in order to reunify with their children. And the research shows that parents are much less likely to end up back in jail or prison if they're concerned about reunifying with their kids.
I'm a recovering meth addict. I used for 13 years, and one night Child Welfare Services got involved when my fourth child was born weighing 1 pound, 13 ounces. When they did come knocking and saying, we're taking your children, that was enough for me to say, okay, I'm done, I need help. And that's what changed my life is, that 1 pound baby girl, and somebody saying, here, we have a solution. If you do this, this, and this, you can get your children back. And that's what it was. Within 30 days, 2 of my children came home because I'd quit using. That was, I stopped using December 21st, 1999, so we're coming up on 9 years, and I'm kind of excited. I think you have to be ready, and you have to run across the right people. You never know when in that person's life they're going to be able to make that decision to stop, and what encouragement you can give to that person. And it could be a police officer, it could be a child welfare person, it could be handing them that number to NA or setting them up, just making them feel confident enough to do it, because it is very scary to make that step and go try and get clean and sober.
She went through, it was like really hard for her because like she got us taken away and then she had to take a whole bunch of classes to get us back, and she's been clean for a very long time now. So it's, yeah, very proud of her. She's just done so much for us.
I think even now with what I do with child welfare and giving back, it's taught me to be a leader, helping other families. My children see that. They have compassion for other families, and they're always eager to jump in, and even if it's handing $1 to a stranger, that's going to help them. My girls see that. My son sees that. They're all amazing children, and they're going to grow up and they're going to be really good, productive citizens.
My mom is special and I love her.
Well, I thank God every day that child welfare came involved with my life. I had the best social workers. Were they all good? No, but I had the best ones, and I love them dearly. I'm living proof that people can make a difference and can change their lives.